Formula 1, the pinnacle of engineering and the pinnacle of racing. Or is it? Because realistically only the top teams are capable of winning a race, and barring some sort of alignment of the stars, then yes, one of the lower end teams will get their shot at the top step of the podium, like Jordan in 1998 at Spa, or even Pierre Gasly at Monza last year. And there's always some sort of wish amongst F1 fans that one day the field will be closer together, and people are hoping that when the 2022 cars come into service, as it were, that will actually happen, because the 2022 cars are more ground effect based, and that should in theory reduce the dreaded dirty air and we get closer as well as better racing. That is the theory, and this whole would BOP work in Formula 1 thing is something I've been meaning to do for a while, since nowadays sport in general is trapped behind a rather expensive paywall, and these sports are trying to be more balanced towards entertainment as they are towards actual sport, and sometimes they go a bit too far. Looking at you, NASCAR. But if it turns out we once again get a runaway winner in 2022, no doubt the FIA will try to introduce the next lot of knee-jerk rule changes to try and get the field closer together. While saying, as usual, it's all to improve the show. But one way some people suggest to bring the field closer is BOP, which is something done mainly in endurance racing. In endurance racing and stuff like that, the companies build the cars, they're homologated, and then they're sorted out to stop manufacturers spending a ton of money. Because no way are Porsche or BMW or Mercedes going to spend millions on developing a new car when it's just going to get tweaked and nerfed by the authorities anyway, and other cars will be given a leg up around them to enable them to be able to compete. But I actually enjoy it. All these cars being able to compete together, and you've got all these cool supercar shapes. I like it. You might not, but I like it. But still, some cars will be naturally better on some tracks compared to others. You've got mid-engine good here, front engine good there, rear engine, chuck it in the bin. Okay, that's the 911 fans angry. And the way they do this is through adding weight, adjusting turbos, changing air intakes, making rear wings a millimetre shorter and stuff like that. So why not just do that in Formula 1? Unlike a lot of other series, and I think only Hypercar LMP1 being the only exception that I can find, F1 cars are unique to the teams that build them. These teams build the cars in-house, sort of. I mean, Haas gets Dallara to build theirs, but they're built unique to each team, so they're not spec cars like those seen in IndyCar, or manufacturers building them and then selling them to privateer teams like you see in GT3 and rallying British Touring Cars, World Touring Cars, TCR, whatever it may be. Now obviously some of these manufacturers will have their factory outfits as well, like factory Aston Martin, factory Porsche, factory Ferrari, and then you've got like a factory Bentley team, but someone like Team Parker Racing buying a customer Bentley like they did in Blancpain a few years ago. So if you've ever watched Top Gear and watched the 458s against a Continental GT, for example, around the test track, they'll probably have a decent amount of time between the two cars, but when they go to race at the 24 Hours of Spa, for example, they'll be able to go wheel to wheel, by GT3 standards at least. But would the system work in Formula 1? Yeah, weight, horsepower drops. Imagine Haas getting a massive leg up, and then you've got Schumacher and Mazepin getting in the top 5 in qualifying every race. Formula 1 has already introduced aerodynamic testing regulations, or ATRs, which basically means that certain teams get more wind tunnel testing than others. If you finish lower down the pecking order, you get more aerodynamic testing time. If you finish higher up, you get less. But the actual times you can test a week doesn't differ that much. It's probably like another 10 hours or something like that between Mercedes and Alfa. But either way, this is the closest thing that Formula 1 has got to the dreaded BOP. Toto Wolff called it a fine adjustment, saying, "What has been introduced with the new ATR is a possibility for the lower ranked teams to slowly creep back in terms of development scope to where the leading teams are. It's a tiny percentage every year, so it's not going to make a big difference from one year to the other, but it's going to balance the field out after a few years. But I believe that if you're not good enough to win anymore, then you have equal opportunity. You are second or third, you have more scope again than the world champion, and I think this was done as a fine adjustment, not with a baseball bat. The reverse grids would have been the baseball bat." He also said that BOP has no place in Formula 1, and of course he's going to say that. He's at the winning team, the dominant team. He wants to protect that advantage. He's protecting Mercedes' interests, in the same way that Christian Horner wants to protect Red Bulls and Mattia Binotto wants to protect Ferraris. I guess the TLDR with this is politics. For teams like Haas, Alfa and Williams, BOP would be the best thing ever. They're going to get a leg up. But for teams like Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, maybe even McLaren, it'll be the opposite. Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari are already at the top. McLaren has just worked its way back to the top, sort of, and then they're going to think that all that money spent is going to be wasted. And because every single Formula 1 team is different and unique to each individual team, well, except Aston Martin obviously, every single component on a Formula 1 car is designed to work with about 20 others all at the same time. We've seen it before with, a small crack in the floor or a chip taken out of a front wing or a diffuser, and then the performance is absolutely ruined. Unless you're Mark Webber, in which case you get your front wing end plate lopped off and suddenly you go faster. When he was at Red Bull, that happened to him more than once. So by messing with one piece of the car to slow it down by 1/10, you could end up making it half a second slower, which is, not the point of BOP. You could mess with the turbo pressures to slow the cars down or restrict the amount of hybrid deploy available, but again, politics. Mercedes, Renault and Ferrari have already spent billions on these engines, and we talked about this when I looked at the MG UK being ditched to allow Volkswagen to come in. Honda would argue they spent billions just to get to where they are now, although they are leaving and someone else is going to be taking over that engine program, but the point remains. And if you're messing with weight, where do you put it? I mean, F1 cars already use ballast to help with the weight distribution and bring the car up to minimum weight requirements, and at least on the 09 to 2013 spec cars they would use aluminium or tungsten blocks placed at certain points of the car. So they put one under the nose cone, on the front wing, or even under the gearbox, because if you put it under the gearbox you're keeping the centre of gravity down. I think, anyway. I did an audio engineering degree, so I work with sound rather than real physics. In the BTCC they just have a box to put the success ballast in, and it's roughly behind where the front passenger seat would be in the normal road car. But this is a racing car based off a production road car that you can buy at any showroom in the UK or in Europe, much like GTs are based off high-end exotic road cars and supercars. F1 cars aren't GTs, they're not family hatchbacks. There really isn't anywhere to put the ballast that I can think of. But it's a discussion point anyway, and while the grid does seem closer in 2021, it's the final year of the current regulations, so we really need to look to 2022 and sort of evaluate mid-season to see what happens. But I would like to hear your thoughts. Would BOP suit Formula 1 like it does in GT3 or touring cars, or does it defeat the ethos of Formula 1, which is, here's your rulebook, now bugger off and build your car, and we'll see you in February for testing, yeah? Leave any and all thoughts down in the comments section and get a discussion going. It is, after all, why this series exists. Because I actually don't know with this. Could it be done? Can't it be done? I don't know the ins and outs of a Formula 1 car. Maybe some of those mechanics that turned up on the one about travelling too much could weigh in on that. That would be helpful. And while you're on your way down to the comments section, if this video has given you food for thought, then you can like the video. And if you're new here, you can subscribe and get the bell on so you never miss out on one of my future videos. Big thanks to the people of Patreon that continue to support the channel. If you do want to leave me a monthly tip, you can do so by following the link in the description, where you'll also find pointers to my socials. So until next time, I've been Millward. Have a great day wherever you live in the world. I'll see you all again soon for another video. So until then, goodbye.